She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. She'll put the pressure in your fragile skull. I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes in and goes, you know, and she's got me living in a chemical oven.
Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to Coffee and Crime Time. And I tell you what, I gotta start picking some lighter topics for these videos because I need a break. This one, we're talking about today, which is the case of Cupcake Mckinney, plus the one we talked about last time, the Thomas Valva case, it's getting to me. So next time I'm gonna have a little bit of a lighter Coffee and Crime Time. I know it's weird to use the word light when you're talking about crime, but I think we can manage it for my mental health, for your mental health. Let's make an effort. Maybe R. Kelly's up to something and we can make fun of him again. Before we get started though, I want to have a quick word from our sponsor, and it kind of fits in here because there is so much hate and sadness going on in the world. And Valentine's Day is coming up, you know, a day that traditionally is supposed to be about love and telling the person that you love them. And I don't care if it's a Hallmark created holiday at this point. I could choose a little love in my life, and I think everybody else could too. As you guys know, Luisa Jewelry is one of my die-hard favorite sponsors. They're so supportive of this channel, and any of you guys who have gone and purchased something through Luisa using my link, you have supported this channel as well. The last video that we had got demonetized, the one before that got demonetized. You know, they get demonetized shortly within being posted, but that is what it is. That's why we have sponsors, and that's why we talk about these sponsors in these videos, so that we can keep the channel going and we can keep bringing awareness to these cases and keep talking about them. Luisa Jewelry is having a Valentine's Day special sale right now, and I'm so excited about it. I just got this necklace from them, and it's awesome because I'm like looking down, so awkward when you look down, but I just got this necklace from them. It's my birthstone, and it's so adorable. It's a little birthstone coin. My birthday's coming up on February 8th, so I'm an Aquarius. It's an amethyst. I love this. It's so simple. I like that it's silver because it matches my rings. I like to mix up silver and gold, but I really, really like this piece. And they also sent me a bracelet that I've been dying to get from them for months. So here's the bracelet. It's so pretty, so delicate, and it has a little cross at the end, and the cross is going to kind of dangle off, which is why I really liked it. So you clasp it, and then the cross dangles off like this. And the only reason I'm not wearing it right now is because my nails, well, my thumbnails at least, are too long, and I can't clasp it while I'm putting it on, and my husband's not here to help me. You know, your husband's the one that puts your jewelry on for you. He's not here to help me, so I'm not able to put it on. I struggled, and then I looked at my 3 dogs and I was like, can you guys help me out? They couldn't, and now they're barking, so they know I'm talking about them. There are some really beautiful pieces on the Luisa Jewelry website right now, and Luisa prides themselves on being responsible, sustainable, and transparent, which we're all about. They pay attention to what kind of materials they're using, making sure that they're recycling materials, using the best materials possible, but also considering the environment and the sustainability of these pieces. They're a brand that pays attention to the past and the future. The past because they pay attention to where their materials that they're using for their jewelry come from, and the future because they create long-lasting jewelry with a conscience. They create their jewelry in limited small batches so nothing's wasted while they're using recycled materials whenever possible. They use 14 karat solid gold, 100% recycled gold, because there's enough gold in the world without mining more. Gold mining is not a pretty business. Their sterling silver is made of 92.5 pure silver, matching the highest standards in fine jewelry. It's also plated with rhodium to reinforce its longevity. And you can get the same beautiful jewelry pieces you'd get from these high-end jewelry stores without paying that that high-end markup because there's no middleman. They're just getting the jewelry, they're creating it in-house, and then they're selling it to you at affordable prices. So right now for Valentine's Day, Luisa is running a 15% off a site-wide sale. Click the link in the description box if you want to check it out. I would. There's so many pieces that I want. There's these little heart earrings. They're gold with like little red hearts in them that I want. I'll pop them on the screen if I remember to. Yeah, I found them. So they're called the Maha. They're like these little gold dangly earrings. They have little red hearts in them. I think they're so cute and so retro and perfect to wear for like a Valentine's date. So go ahead and click the link in the description box if you're interested in treating yourself for Valentine's Day. Maybe a sister, a best friend, your mother. Maybe you want to kind of like send it to your boyfriend so he knows what you're looking for. But you will be supporting a really good business and a really good company, one that I support and believe in. And you'll also be supporting the Stephanie Harlowe channel, which I know a lot of you out there really want to do that. So thank you guys so much. Let's get started on the video. This is going to be a hard one, so just be prepared for that. As always, I'm going to be as sensitive as possible. Today, we are going to talk about Cupcake Mckinney, a beautiful 3-year-old girl who is nicknamed Cupcake. And since that is what everyone called her, that's how we will refer to her now. Her parents' names are April Thomas and Dominic Mckinney, and they lived all together in Birmingham, Alabama. On Saturday, October 12, 2019, Cupcake attended a birthday party with her 11-year-old brother at the Tom Brown Village, which is a public housing community in Birmingham. There's some confusion and controversy over this point, as many news sites reported that she attended the party with her mother and that it was the party of a family member or there was family members there, but we'll discuss that in a moment. Around 8:30 p.m. that evening, Cupcake vanished, and she was seen by another child who was at that party getting into an SUV, and once inside, she was seen crying. So she was last seen on surveillance footage at about 7:24 that evening, playing with another small child in a courtyard that was in or by the Tom Brown area. And in this video, you can see 2 men walk by the children at separate times. The first man walks by, looks at them, but doesn't seem to engage with them. However, it's been speculated that he may have dropped something on the ground near them, such as candy, because you can see them bend down and begin to pick something up off the ground. Moments later, another man approaches, and he does engage with the children. We don't know what was said, but after speaking with the little girls, he runs off, and they run off behind him. Initially, police said that they had identified this second man, but they were looking for the first man who may either have information or been working with the second man. I do have to lean more towards the second theory at this point, considering if he was dropping candy for them, it may have been to set the second man up to approach, maybe ask if they wanted more candy, and then coax them to follow him to his vehicle where he allegedly had the candy. Now, the second child in the video was identified, and it seems like this was the niece of a woman named Shantae Long, who's the cousin of Cupcake Mckinney. That little girl is safe and well, and only Cupcake ended up being taken. When it was discovered that Cupcake was gone, the police were called, and detectives arrived on scene to talk to her mother, April Thomas. It was there that they were also able to speak to the 10-year-old boy who claimed to have seen the abduction happen. He said that the kidnapper had been driving a dark blue or black SUV, and another child witness gave a description of 2 people in that vehicle, a man with bad teeth and a chunky black female. Kids, so honest. Kids say the darndest things. There were also other children who were not attending the party who reported having strange interactions that day with a man in an SUV. Earlier that day, a little after noon, 2 preteen girls were leaving cheerleading practice at Haynes Elementary School when they were approached by a man and a woman driving a blue Toyota Sequoia. Now, the man rolled down his window and told the girls, "I'm looking for a girl that looks like you," before offering them candy. The girls obviously felt uncomfortable with this and they left, but surveillance from the school supports their statement and their timeline. So there's surveillance footage from the school, and it shows a car pulling up to these girls, them talking to somebody. It doesn't show who's in the car or the SUV though. Other children in the area around the Tom Brown Village also said there was a man and a woman driving around that day, handing out candy. Due to the cheerleader's testimony and the place where the abduction happened, police were able to narrow down an area that they wanted to canvass, and they eventually found something at a nearby Shell gas station 7 hours before the kidnapping of Cupcake Mckinney. And just minutes before the two girls were approached by the school, a man driving a blue Toyota Sequoia was seen purchasing $18.91 worth of candy. So an Amber Alert was released with the descriptions of Cupcake and the two people believed to have taken her and the vehicle that they were driving. The next night, police were able to track the vehicle to a resident of the Woodside condominiums in Center Point. Neighbors of this complex had called the authorities when they saw a Toyota Sequoia matching the description on the Amber Alert parked outside the complex. Two suspects were then taken into custody around 8 p.m. that Sunday night. A man named Patrick Stallworth and his girlfriend, a woman going by the name Derek Anisha Brown. So who are these two people? Patrick Stallworth, he doesn't seem to have much of a criminal background. In 2004, he pled guilty to a misdemeanor marijuana charge, and in 2014, he was arrested again on a felony marijuana charge, which was later dismissed. His girlfriend, Derek Anisha Brown, however, she seems to have had a more tumultuous past. In fact, Derek Anisha Brown was not even her real name. It was Quintessa Jackson. And in 2009, when she was 18 years old, she'd been arrested and found guilty of burglary and theft of property. She was given 2 years probation, but she violated her probation when she failed to pay her court fees or check in with her probation officer. Now, in December of 2010, she was arrested again. This time, she was charged with 2 felonies, robbery and fraudulent use of a credit card. So she wrote a letter to the judge on this case asking that he help her. She talked about her violent and unstable childhood, which involved abuse, stints in mental health facility, and years of foster care, and she claimed that she'd only used that credit card so she could provide for her family, that she didn't know what else to do, and she was worried that if she was just sent to jail, there'd be no one there to take care of her children, and her main concern was keeping her family together and being a mother at all costs. Now, while this sentencing was pending for the case, her probation from her 2009 case was revoked. And she went to prison for 6 months and 18 days. After her release, she was given 3 years of probation again because that worked so well last time. In 2018, Child Services removed her children from her care after a relative alleged she put one of her children in the washing machine as a form of punishment. Now, I've seen this reported in 2 ways. Some people say it was the washing machine. Some people say it was the dryer. Either way, you shouldn't be putting your kids in either one of those appliances. In fact, let's just keep our kids out of all appliances, just to be safe. Now, this relative already had custody of one of Brown's children, and 3 more were placed in her care temporarily. The next day, Brown went to this relative's house with a gun, pointed it at her, and took her children back. The police were called, and they were told that there was a concern that Brown would hurt herself and her children before letting them be taken away from her again. Authorities were luckily able to track her down to a nearby hotel, but she led them on this police car chase, eventually crashing her car into another car while she and her children were inside. So she was charged with kidnapping, menacing, assault, and attempt to elude, but based on a technicality, the kidnapping charges were dropped. Thank you to an incredibly flawed justice system. However, in March of 2019, she was indicted again on these charges and arrested again, but released soon after. So, according to a relative of Brown's, she did have a very bad childhood. Her family was incredibly important to her, but there was also some mental health issues at play as well. So they have these 2 people in custody, but they're only being questioned about the whereabouts of Cupcake, which they claim to know nothing about. The real reason for the arrest was the fact that a good deal of pictures were found on Stallworth's phone, depicting children in a way that children should not be depicted. And you understand what I mean. I don't have to go into detail. Camille was not one of the children in these pictures. Still, the fact that he had these pictures, that his SUV was tied to an SUV that had been a part of a kidnapping of a young child, it raises concern. So he was charged with 7 counts of possession and intent to distribute these photographs, and Derek was held based on her past charges, the kidnapping charges, after her bond was revoked. And get this, after being tied to the disappearance of Cupcake, after finding what they found on his phone, Patrick Stallworth was released 4 days after being arrested after posting a $500,000 bond. But Derica Arisha Brown, she remained in custody. On Friday, October 18th, lawyers for both Stallworth and Brown denied that their clients had anything to do with Camille's abduction. And that's when the surveillance video of Cupcake and the other little girl playing is released. The police say that they know who the second man is. Allegedly, it's Patrick Stallworth, but they asked the public for information on the first man. Now, on October 21st, law enforcement gets word that Derica Brown, who's still in custody, wants to chat. Due to information that she gave them, police were able to locate the body of 3-year-old Camille Cupcake Mckinney in a dumpster that had been previously parked near the Woodside condominiums where the suspects lived. The dumpster had already been moved to a landfill, and Patrick Stallworth was taken back into custody. Okay, so both Stallworth and Brown obviously have very different stories about what happened that night, the night that Camille was kidnapped. And this is heartbreaking and disgusting and so incredibly sad. I'm going to be I'm going to give you the details, the important details, but I'm not going to be like super specific. And I'll link articles in the description box if you want to get those details for yourself. But trust me, you don't. So Derica Arisha Brown claimed that she didn't know Cupcake had been taken by Patrick Stallworth. She didn't even realize that the girl was in their SUV until they stopped at a store, a Jet Pet, and she went in and bought a drink. Now, of course, I find this incredibly hard to believe. It actually makes no sense. The eyewitness saw Cupcake crying in the car, and I have a 3-year-old little girl. They're never quiet, especially when they're scared or upset. So right away, we have reason to doubt the legitimacy of this statement. Additionally, on the surveillance footage of her at the store, she didn't seem shocked or upset that her boyfriend had just abducted a little girl. She acted perfectly normal, and she certainly didn't try to get help for that baby. So then they go back to the apartment, and this is the part in the story where they begin pointing fingers at each other, naturally. According to Patrick Stallworth, he walked into the apartment and he saw his girlfriend Brown sitting on the couch with Camille, and he said, "That's not your child," to which she responded that she wanted to keep the child. And then she suggested to Stallworth that he abuse her. And when I say abuse, I think you all understand what kind of abuse I'm talking about. Stallworth claims that he refused and he went outside to smoke a cigarette. When he came back in, he claimed that Brown had undressed Camille, taken out her hair bows, and given her a bath. And then she put her hands over the child's nose and mouth. After that, Cupcake went to sleep. When asked in court to clarify what he meant by went to sleep, he responded that she had died. Derica's statement of the events that day differ. She claims that once they got back to the apartment with the child, she stayed outside to have a cigarette. And when she came back in, she went into the bathroom where Patrick Stallworth was. And at that point, she thought she saw a shadow pass by the door, but she alleges to have thought she was tripping since she'd taken meth and trazodone that day. Trazodone is an antidepressant and a sedative. You all know what meth is. After this, she went outside for, another cigarette. She came inside, made a sandwich, and then went into the bedroom where she then fell asleep. At some point, she woke up, went to the bathroom again, and that's when she saw Camille sitting on the couch with her feet dangling off. She also claims she witnessed Patrick Stallworth kneeling in front of the child, forcing her to perform a sexual act on him. She then went back to sleep, and when she woke up, she told Patrick Stallworth about what she'd seen, and he replied to her that she'd been tripping, basically suggesting that she must have imagined it all. Brown told the detectives that next day, her boyfriend had a garbage bag with him when he left the apartment after asking her where the lighter fluid was and being informed by her that it had been left at their previous apartment. So the sad truth is, we'll never know exactly what happened to Camille Cupcake Mckinney in that apartment. Due to forensic evidence, we do know that she was there. Most likely she was abused. Patrick Stallworth's DNA was found under her fingernails, and a small scratch was present on his chest when he was photographed at the city jail. Additionally, after the couple had stolen Camille and brought her to the apartment, Patrick Stallworth had gone back out to a gas station and purchased an energy drink and a pill for sexual dysfunction. Camille's autopsy had also shown the child had toxic levels of meth and trazodone in her body, and that she'd been suffocated, likely on the very same day that she was abducted. On a blood-stained mattress cover at the apartment, DNA from both Stallworth and Brown was found, as well as DNA from Camille Cupcake Mckinney. After the Amber Alert was issued for Camille, there was a lot of activity on the cell phone of Patrick Stallworth. 7 calls to his mother. And 2 inmates at the Jefferson County Jail, they'd also given information that Stallworth had confessed to them he'd killed Camille by accident. Drake Arisha Brown's lawyers claimed that there was not enough evidence to suggest she'd had a hand in the murder, but the judge felt differently, stating, "It's clear to me one or both of them abused this child and went on to kill her and dispose of her body. This woman did not come forward. She could have easily went to law enforcement." Completely true. They've both been charged with capital murder of a child under the age of 14. Now, if all this is accurate, it puts Cupcake's abduction in a very rare category. Only about 1% of child kidnappings a year are committed by complete strangers. Usually it's the child's own family or somebody they know, but that's where some of the odd information about this case comes in. Personally, I without a doubt believe that these 2 are guilty. There's enough evidence to prove they are. However, many people initially had some doubt and they focused on her parents. Cupcake's mother, April, has been accused of leaving Cupcake and her brother at this party unsupervised. People who were there claimed they didn't know who the little girl was and that she was unsupervised for much of the time. The woman who was hosting the party claimed much of the same in a now deleted Facebook post. Now, I believe I have screenshots of this Facebook post, so I'm going to read it to you. Okay, so this Facebook post comes from allegedly the woman whose house the party was at, or the woman who was hosting the party. And she says in this Facebook post, "PSA, I'm not trying to argue with no one, but yeah, that party was at my house, and no one who lived there was invited but was welcome. No, we could not watch no one else's kids because we had too many of our own there, but from what I keep hearing, the mother was never watching them. I never met the mother nor child, so I can't say that for myself because I don't know her personally, so I'm not judging no one. I had over 20 to 30 kids of my own, so we had to keep up with our own kids, which we was doing that. We fed that little girl though and gave her cake, but after that we didn't know nothing. I pray with everything in me that she is found though. Me and my family don't know nothing past that. I am sorry, Lord, I pray she is found. Share that." She went on to say that baby was unattended for hours at a party where she didn't know anyone, nor was with anyone. Don't get me wrong, it was a lot of kids came out of nowhere. No, they wasn't invited, but when we feed our kids, we feed them, so forth and so on, because they were there. I only feel some type of way because she was one of those kids you had to watch. She kept doing things she had no business doing. I asked where her mother was several times. No one knew. I guess one of the other neighbors took her home because of what she kept doing. The girl was back out less than 5 minutes later. Mother never came to the door, asked or saw who brought her baby home. Anywho, I left around 7:45, maybe before. I was in bed at 8:24 and I stay across town. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but it's nobody's fault. I hate that this happened, but I thought the little girl was back home again. It was dark. We were packing up and doing a head count on our kids. I was out there from 3 to 7, and I have yet to see who the little girl was with besides her brother, who was enjoying himself like a kid. So if that's true, we would obviously have questions, like why would you leave a baby alone at a party where no one knew her? Why were Camille and another small child playing by themselves after 7 p.m. at night when it was dark, allowing someone the opportunity to lure her away? Why would this person only take Camille and not the other little girl that she was playing with? Many people believed that either Stallworth and Brown were framed or that there was an underlying reason for the kidnapping, possibly retribution against her father, Dominic, who suggested during an interview that a ransom had been requested of him. A lot of stuff, it doesn't add up. Shantae Long, cousin to Camille, claimed that the wrong people were being blamed for this. She said that she believed Patrick Stallworth was in the wrong place at the wrong time and that Camille's murder was personal. Other family members echoed this sentiment. So we have the fact that there are multiple reports that Camille was dropped off, that her mother left, and that she really didn't know anyone there. Of course, April disputed this claim, said there were multiple family members around. Cupcake was not unsupervised. Once again, there's no clear-cut answer, but as we can see in the surveillance video, Cupcake is clearly, at least at this point, around 7:30 at night, not being supervised, at least at the time she was taken. Additionally, local rapper Two Guns Vito came out, and he claimed that Camille's father, Dominic, was involved in what happened to his daughter, that there seemed to be some kind of drug deal involved in which he owed money, and he either willingly gave her up, almost as a trade for what he owed, or that she was taken as retribution. Now, there's multiple videos on YouTube discussing this, and I don't know enough about it, the people involved, the community, to give my opinion on whether or not that's a viable option, but it seems it seems to now be the main controversy in this case. And speaking of that surveillance video, it was well known that Cupcake was not a friendly girl with strangers, but in this video, she's seen willingly running after a man who's allegedly Patrick Stallworth. Many people speculate that she must have known the person she followed, otherwise she would not have. Now, I kind of don't agree with that. I don't really know about that. A 3-year-old is still a baby and might really follow anyone who offers her candy. You can tell a 3-year-old, don't talk to strangers, don't follow strangers, but they're still technically a baby, and their baser instincts of wanting candy, it's gonna override anything else. And children are incredibly trusting to begin with. But once again, it's a factor to be considered. Additionally, there was another man, that other man in the surveillance video that was thought to be involved, or at least was being looked at or looked for by police for information. And we don't know at this time if he was ever found or who he was. So although I do believe the right people are in prison for this, I have to wonder if there are others involved, other accomplices who are still out there walking free. At the end of the day, I'm not here to judge the parents of a little girl who's now dead. If I knew more information, if there was credible evidence pointing one way or the other, if I had a reliable source, I would really have no problem calling them out. But at this time, I don't believe that there has been a case made to prove without a doubt that they had something to do with this. However, that doesn't take away the possibility that more information may come to light later, as this is still developing. It also doesn't erase the fact that Camille was 3 years old. Like I said, still a baby. I have a 3-year-old, I have an 8-year-old, I have an 18-year-old. My 3 kids, very spread out in age, but I'm very protective of them all. But obviously, especially the 3-year-old. I'm never going to drop her off at a party without introducing myself to the parents. I would never even drop her off at a party. I don't think you're supposed to do that with 3-year-olds. I don't know if that's a thing that happens. Let me know in the comments. Unless I 100% knew the person who was having the party, like we were friends and her kids had been to my house and my kids had been to her house and I knew she was going to watch my child, would I leave and probably not even go far. Maybe I would just go next door and grab a cup of coffee. You know, I'd still be close by. So there's that part of me that does not want to judge anybody, especially parents, a mother who's lost her baby. I can't even imagine. However, there's a lot of chatter online that Camille's parents aren't acting like parents who have lost their 3-year-old daughter. Not when she was believed to be missing, not when she was found to be dead. They're doing a lot of social media stuff, you know, getting on Facebook Live and going live and talking about it, but not in the way that you would think they would be. More like defending themselves. So April will go on and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody knew Camille there. This lady's lying. Dominic goes on. He's like, whatever these people are talking about, like, I'm not involved. Kind of laughing while talking. It's just, like I said, I don't know enough about it. And I don't know enough about these people. Everybody mourns differently. Everybody has their own way of handling things that happen to them. So I don't want to judge. I do want you to possibly check out these videos for yourself if you're interested in more information. I want you to kind of give me your opinion on what could have happened. I'm actually going to post in the link a YouTube video from a YouTuber. I believe her name is Paris Milan, and you know, her video was a lot of help to me, and from her video I found other videos, and it was kind of a rabbit hole. It kept going and there's just so much speculation. There is something interesting is that Dominic, who was Cupcake's father, he was arrested 2 or 3 days before she was kidnapped for possession of stolen property, I believe, or receiving stolen property. There is an arrest record for that. In my opinion, when a child goes missing and ends up dead, every single person who saw her that day or was around her that day is at fault in some way. You know, you can say we had a party and this kid just showed up and she wasn't my kid, but I did the best, you know, I fed her, but she's not my kid. I got other kids to pay attention to. And it's like, that's a cop out to me, especially when it's a 3-year-old. I get it. You've got a lot on your plate, but then somebody needs to watch the baby, right? Because it's still a little baby. Even if she just got dropped off, even if nobody was there to watch her, it's your responsibility now. Just like if I was walking down the road and I saw a lost child, I wouldn't be like, oh, I got my own kids at home to take care of. This little lost child, she can fend for herself. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't say that. So if I'd been at that party, I would have done everything in my power. If I saw a little girl who was unattended, to make sure I had my eyes on her at all times. It's just the right thing to do. And, you know, if you can't, then find another adult and give them that responsibility and that task if you're busy doing party things. Whatever, figure it out. And if you brought her home and then she came back, it's time to maybe give the police a call and say, hey, this little girl just keeps showing up here and we can't watch her and we don't want something bad to happen to her. Like, do something. Do something. This diffusion of responsibility, this pushing off and pointing fingers, it doesn't help Camille now. It didn't help her then. And it's not going to help anybody else in the future. So it's completely counterproductive. And it's still so unclear whether or not Camille did know anybody at this party. Other people say she didn't. Some people say she did. If her cousin's niece was there, that other little girl that she was playing with, you'd have to maybe assume that she did. Regardless, like I said, finding somebody to blame doesn't bring Camille back. It never will. I don't know why we don't do our best to protect children. It's our duty as a humankind to protect the future generation. And that didn't happen. And Camille's life was cut short. Horrifically, most likely. I can't imagine how scared she was. I can't imagine how sad and, you know, wondering where her parents were, wondering why nobody was helping her. She probably felt so abandoned and just terrified. And as for Patrick Stallworth and Derica Brown, I forget her name. As for them, I hope they go away for life. If there is some mental health issues in Brown's past, I feel bad about that, but I think that she will get the help that she needs in prison. I wondered if there was some sort of aspect of her having her children taken away from her and maybe wanting to kidnap another child in order to kind of replace her children, but then the abuse that followed, the murder that followed. Why did you have to murder her? Why did you have to kill a 3-year-old little girl who wouldn't be able to identify you? She's just 3. Can't really express themselves, you know. They could have just brought her back. But regardless, they didn't. And I hope they go away for a very long time. I'm just going to pull up on my phone. Like I said, this has been developing, and this happened in October, so it's been a couple of months, and there's still things coming out all the time. If you go on YouTube and you look, there's all these videos from all these people who are either in the community or are familiar with the community or have their own thoughts, and you should check them out. I think what's an important thing to talk about is, you know, once again, our justice system, our legal system seems to be very flawed. You've got a woman, Derica Brown, who kidnapped her own children after having them taken away, kidnapped her own children at gunpoint, led the police on a police chase, crashed her car when her kids were in the car. So I'm not sure why she didn't get some kind of, you know, endangering minors situation in charge. And then she gets, like, what did she do, 6 months in prison or something, and then she's on probation. And this was not the first time something had happened with her. This was not the first time she'd been involved in something nefarious and dangerous. She'd been charged with using somebody else's credit card and then kind of played it off like, well, what else am I supposed to do? I have to provide for my family, and I thought that's the only way I could do it. Like, just a cop-out. We need to start realizing that when people have patterns of behavior of abusing their children, patterns of behavior of stealing or hurting, that's probably not going to end by putting them on probation. Half the time they don't even reach out to their probation officer, or they move, or they change their name in the case of Derica Brown to avoid being found. And then they're going to go out and do this again because it is a pattern, and a pattern means that it repeats itself. We had her in custody. She was in, you know, prison behind bars where she belonged, where she could hopefully get help. And then she was just let out. What she did is not something that a sane person does. I love my children, but if something happened where they were taken away from me, God forbid, by CPS or something, I would just be so devastated. But I would at the same time, you know, do what I needed to do to get them back, to prove that I was worthy of being their mother, that I could keep them safe, that I could do the right thing and teach them the right way. And going to your relative's house who's taking care of them and holding this person at gunpoint so you can steal them back is not the right thing to do. So you have to wonder what kind of mental state this person is in. 6 months in prison doesn't cure somebody with a mental illness. Years and years of therapy and help and support do. But she'd have to do all that stuff while not being in the custody of her children, who she became a danger to. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, this is about Camille Cupcake McKinney. And it's about the fact that for some reason, the adults in her life, they didn't protect her as well as they could. And I'm not saying that April and Dominic didn't love their daughter or didn't want to be the best for her, but they did not protect her as well as they could, because you saw in that surveillance video when she was taken, she and another little baby girl, completely alone. It's dark. They're like on a street playing by themselves. Nobody was watching them. Camille was let down by the adults in her life. So we need to remember her. And like I said, you know, my last video about Thomas Valvo was demonetized. It was monetized for like 15 minutes and then it was demonetized. And upon review, they said no, which means it's not going to be shared, which means it's not going to be suggested by YouTube. This video, most likely, if the last video was demonetized, this one will be too, which means it's not going to be shared. It's not going to be suggested by YouTube. And you guys have to understand that obviously this is my full-time job, so I want to make money from these videos. But that's not as important if, you know, half of my videos are demonetized. I'm still going to do all right between sponsorships and Patreon and hopefully AdSense. Hopefully. I'm still going to do okay. Enough to live. It's a little less than I was making when I worked at Verizon, but it's enough. The main issue with me being agitated that these videos get demonetized is when a video is deemed not advertiser friendly, it's not put into YouTube recommendations, it's not suggested, which means you're going to get less eyes on it. And I guess I understand why that is. But what we need to do is we need to share these videos, right? We need to get them out. So share them on Twitter, share them on social media, do what you can to get other eyes on it. Because if we can help one person learn how to better protect themselves and their children, then I feel like that's all I could ask for. Just one person, to save one person. That's all I could ask for. So please share these videos. Do what you can. I am working on a very big case that also is definitely going to be demonetized and, you know, maybe just deleted altogether. So if you guys don't follow me on Twitter or Instagram, follow me on those platforms so you can keep up with me. Thank you so much to our sponsor for this video, Luisa Jewelry. Thank you so much to my Patreons who literally, without them, I wouldn't be able to do YouTube full time, which means you'd probably get like a video a month. Thank you guys so much. My sponsors keep this channel going. All of you out there who keep coming back and watching, keep this channel going. And let's remember Camille Cupcake McKinney as the beautiful, bright light in the world that she was. She was a cutie. That she reminds me of my Bella, just the clothes she wears and that beautiful big smile that she had. She was taken far too soon from this world, and the world would have probably been a better place with her in it. Thank you guys so much for being here. As always, stay kind and stay beautiful and stay aware. I love you. Bye.
Straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery.